Vayehi li shua ozi bezimratya vayehi li yeshua ozi bezimratya vayehi Shua Ozi Vezimratya Vayehi Yeshua Ozi Vezimratya Vayehi Yeshua Ozi Vezimratya Vayehi Yeshua. Good morning, Boker Tov. It is Tuesday. It is a time for Torah. It is a time for sharing. It's a time for learning. It's a time for being together. Thank you for joining me this morning. And so this week's Parsha, this week's Torah portion is Parshat Chaye Sarah, which talks about, all of Sarah's death. But in truth, Chaye Sarah translates literally to the life of Sarah. And so we know that we go living, living, living until our time is done. And then where a funeral happens, we're buried, as tradition tells us, and sometimes other things instead, choices are made. But when a person dies, very much we talk about their life, or we should be at least. And so there are a few teachings, still working on a third for this week, but at least for today and for tomorrow's Torah, the headlines are the holiness of letting go and kindness as a legacy. And the third, I think, is continued courage to love. But I'm not sure yet because I'm not sure I like it. But anyway, today, as we come to this place, Rabbi Jay usually does mindfulness and midot. So there is a midah, there is a spiritual quality or character trait that comes with this part of Torah, with this portion, but specifically with this idea in mind. And so the midah is kavod hachayim, which is honoring life even in loss. So there is holiness of letting go, of course. This week's portion begins with a paradox. It begins with the words, Vayihiyu chaye Sarah, me'ah shana ve'esrim shana ve'sheva shanim. And the life of Sarah was 127 years. And yet, the very next verse tells us she dies. The life of Sarah, wow, 127 years, 127 years. And then the very next verse is, and Sarah dies. Rabbis notice the tension immediately. Like, why is this portion, the story of Sarah's death, called the life of Sarah? You're calling it, you're putting it out there. The second verse is saying that she's dead, but you're calling it her life. Maybe because Torah wants to teach us that true life is not measured in years, but in legacy. Sarah's life continues not only in memory, but in actions her loved ones take after she's gone. And the text goes on, it continues to say, and Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. This is, in the word weep, we think tears. This is the first recorded incidence, the first time that tears appear in the Torah. Before this, there was violence, there was exile, there was heartbreak, but no human being had cried. There was no weeping, and certainly not weeping for another. Abraham's tears mark a turning point in our sacred story that grief itself becomes holy. This light coming in this window is beautiful but blinding. But what happens next is just as important. The very next verse says, Vayakam Avraham. And Abraham rose. He got up. He rises not to move on, but to move forward. Not to stay stooped in grief, not to stay weeping from the ground, but he finds a place to move forward. His next move is to negotiate a burial place. Ma'arat HaMachpelah, the cave of the ancestors, I'll call it, but the cave of the patriarchs. But this was his way to move forward, to say, I need the next step. What is it? And that was creating permanence in a moment of deep impermanence. That was saying, I need a place. I have to get up from this place and find a place. His rising up is not denial, it's faith in motion. It's this understanding that grief and life must coexist. That we can weep for what was lost, but we still have to continue to build that which is forthcoming, that which is new. Our tradition is, I'm sure like most traditions, but certainly in our tradition, it doesn't ask us to choose between mourning and living. It calls us to hold them both together, to honor both of them. The Shulchan Aruch teaches that mourning has its set times and rituals. Don't restrict your emotion, but give it a sacred form. What does this mean? We say Shiva, we say Kaddish, and then when the time comes, we rise. Vayakam. Like Avraham, to re-engage into this world. We know, personally, for most of us, but we know just because we are holy beings and holy vessels, that we don't ever get over loss. Nobody expects you to get over it. I mean, well, there are people that do, but clearly they've never experienced life or loss. But it's never about getting over the loss. It's about learning to live with it differently. In our own lives, this can be one of the hardest spiritual challenges, to know when to sit and when to stand, when to allow the tears and when to begin to rebuild. Everyone grieves at their own pace, at their own rate, in their own way. There is no time limit. There's no gauge on depth. There's no gauge on reaction. There's no gauge on level. But there are the challenges that come because where you are is not where someone else is or where someone else expects you to be. But this is where the midah for today comes into play. Kavod HaChaim, to honor life. And that becomes our guide. To practice Kavod HaChaim is to honor the fullness of being human. To be able to feel sorrow deeply, but not let sorrow be the end of the story. To remember that love is what gives grief its depth, and that continue to live fully is one of the greatest tributes we can offer to those that we've lost. How do we practice it? I'll give it to you again. To feel sorrow deeply, but not let sorrow be the end of the story. And to remember that love is what gives grief its depth. And that continuing to live fully is one of the greatest tributes we can give our loved ones. For Abraham, honoring Sarah's life meant creating a place of dignity, a place of memory, a cave, yes, but also this foundation for generations to come. So many people I know, including my own family, have family plots, right? So you know that when the time comes, it's taken care of. You know where you're going. You know where your loved ones will be. You know what it is. There's something to be said for pre-planning. And mostly it's for your children or for the generations to come or for the friends that are going to be responsible for you in the end. So it is a cave. Yes, it's a cave, but it's a place so that all generations will know that this is your space. Abraham dedicated a space for his wife. For us, honoring life might mean continuing the work of your loved one's kindness, telling their story, living in a way that reflects the way that they lived their life, continuing lessons, teaching others. Grief then becomes this act of creation, shaping love into legacy. When we name this midah, when we name this spiritual practice, kavod hachayim, we remind ourselves that holiness is found not only in beginnings, but also in the courage to begin again. Every time we rise from the ground of loss, every time we take a breath that feels impossible and step back into the world, we echo Abraham's Vayakam. Vayakam, to get up, to rise. Chaye Sarah, the life of Sarah, isn't a title about what was. It's an instruction for us now, in this moment, to live in a way that carries forward love and faith and courage for those who came before us. Sarah Imenu, the first, the matriarch of tradition. So today's invitation is simple, but yet sacred. Two questions, two thoughts, two ideas of how maybe we can remind ourselves that there is holiness in letting go, but there is a spiritual connection to honoring life even in loss. And so today's invitation to think, to practice, to dream is to question yourself with this question. What is one way that you can practice kavod hachayim, to honor life today? Whose legacy, the second part, memory or teaching, can you bring gently forward? Not by mourning harder, because sometimes, you want to try so hard to do them justice, to do them honor. And yet, it digs you further in the hole of grief. But gently, how can we attach to someone's legacy or memory or teaching, gently bringing it forward, helping us to live more fully? For each of us, it will be different. It's always different. We're all individuals. We grieve differently. We show up differently. We process differently. And yet here we are still all gathered from a place of grief, even if not our own, grief in tradition, remembering the life of Sarah, remembering the beginning of time. beloved friends, Linda, Elisa, Bonnie, Amy, Paula, Aileen, Jeneba, Reb Tova, all of us together here in this place. May we, like Avraham, find the strength to weep when we need to weep and the courage to rise in love, in faith, and in gratitude for life. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. 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 Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. We are one human family, one heart of abundant love. We love you. I look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow morning at 9:30. Have a great day, everybody.